Metal Jesus here, and I am back again with answers to many of the questions that you guys have submitted to me on Facebook, Twitter, and also as a response to the video I posted just a couple days ago celebrating 100,000 subscribers. I asked you guys to submit questions, things you would like me to answer, and I left it pretty general. And you know, I thought I might get a lot of questions. I didn't realize that in just a few days I got over 1,000 questions. So you guys were very enthusiastic and helped me kind of filter these out. So you guys thumbed up the ones that you thought you would like to know. So anyways, I'm going to answer those first, but also throw in some of the more fun and funky ones. There's a lot here, so it's going to be a long video. So go grab a cold one and let's take a look. So one of the most popular questions was from GameSack. You crazy bastards. All right, here we go. Hypothetical question. You were at the flea market looking for some sweet ass games from Sierra Online for the super graphics when you suddenly realize the console didn't have any games made by Sierra. At that time, a Time Lord appears in front of you and zaps you and several other flea market goers back to 1993. You are the only one who survives the trip. The Time Lord apologizes, realizes he's late for a job interview, and takes off, leaving you stranded in 1993. That was a good year, by the way. Now you're hungry for some Sierra games, and you knew the best Sierra games were, of course, on Sega systems. The first Sega CD game you come across is Stellar Fire by Dynamics. I love Dynamics. This is not good because Dynamics is the enemy of Sierra. Not true. You must find a copy of King's Quest for the Master System, otherwise your very soul will slowly twist into a dry hump. My question is this: do you prefer Coors Light, Budweiser, or Heineken? Now, dear GameSack, you guys are fucking weird. But besides that, you know, I don't like any of those. You know, in Seattle, we're kind of spoiled. We really like our microbrews, and I would say I never drink those, but I definitely try not to drink them. I probably would lean towards Heineken because I think that's a decent beer. Yeah. What system surprises you the most with hidden gems, and who has the most titles that you feel missed their mark? It's a tough one. You know, my first thought goes to the Wii, and I'm just as surprised as everyone to say that, but I do think that the Wii got kind of overloaded with crapware and shovelware, and it became almost nearly impossible to find anything good beyond a lot of the big Nintendo franchises. And so it's kind of disappointing because I used to make fun of the Wii. I thought it was stupid and pointless. I thought people waggled around and did a bunch of really dumb stuff with it, you know, with the movement controls. But you know what? Now that I own it and now that I collect for it, actually, I really like that console. And I think there are a bunch of really great games for it. What is your most sought after retro PC game that you would totally do crazy things to get a hold of? Oh boy, I do have a list of old PC games I'm always looking for, and one of them that is at the top of that list, and there's really two, and I used to own it, got rid of it like an idiot, and that would be Fallout 1 and also Fallout 2. And it's funny because I just did my top 10 games of all time, and I completely spaced on adding Fallout 1 because I love that game when it first came out. It was so amazing. And you know, anyway, so I spaced adding that to that list, but don't get me wrong, I love it to death. So I'd really love to find the big box version of those two games. That would be amazing. Also, what else is there? You know, every single SSI gold box game I would love to get, and I believe there's a Neverwinter Nights, and it's like an AOL online version only. Super hard to find. Also, the Elder Scrolls games that came out, like Daggerfall and Arena, are getting very hard to find, very expensive. And then some other ones that I could probably just go out and buy on eBay because they're fairly reasonably priced, but I'd love to find a box copy of it locally, is just some games, like some racing games I used to love, like Interstate 76. I used to love that game. It's not very expensive, but again, you don't come across it very often. So that's just a few.
Metal Jesus, congratulations on 100,000 subscribers. I'm sure you would be at 1 million by now if it wasn't for my ass dragging you down. But thanks anyway for letting me be on your channel. And here's to regressing back down to maybe 50,000, unless I leave. When did Metal Jesus and I meet? Well, it was at Sierra in 1995. I just got a job there in tech support by basically bribing the tech support manager by giving him a bunch of coffee from the espresso stand I was running, and that's how we met. We kind of saw each other, and then I did a show called A Kind of Magic, which was a tribute to Queen, and he came and saw that show, and that's how we met, and we've been buds ever since. Or it was that jail in Tijuana with the ape and the 3 bottles of coconut oil. I don't remember.
If you could take just one game and completely erase all memory of it so that you could play it all over again and experience it for the first time, which would it be? Well, this is going to be a story-driven game for me because that's what I love. And, you know, I guess my mind goes to all those story-driven games that had great plot twists, and this is going to be no surprise to everyone, but I would love to experience Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic again for the first time, because that plot twist that happens about halfway through is amazing. And it rivals some of the best movies, and I loved it. And so to go back and actually re-experience that amazement, you know, would be amazing. And speaking of which, I mean, also, again, Planescape Torment and some of the plot twists that happen in there, some of the really cool and funky parts of that game are so amazing to discover for the first time. If you could be any video game character, who would you be? Well, I think it's obvious, and that is the host of the guy game. I mean, really, the guy standing there with half-naked girls. Hello. But outside of him, probably Garrett from Thief. I just love that character. I thought he was really cool, really dark, really mysterious. Who else? Oh, and then of course James Bond. Every guy loves a James Bond game where you just get to kick ass, you get the girl, you get all the gadgets, you get the really awesome cars. So yeah. Have you ever farted and accidentally pooped yourself? Yeah.
Hey Jason, thanks for having me on, and congratulations on 100,000 subscribers, man. That is pretty awesome. We talked about that a couple years ago, and you're finally there. But the first question we'll get to is the Dave Baby wanted to ask, what are my top 5 GameCube games that are not first-party titles? And I pulled them out here, and I'll start with Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. I love the PlayStation version of this game. This one was more of just a graphical haul for me, because I wanted to see how it would look with better graphics, because the Metal Gear Solid graphics on PS1 were, today's standard, it looked kind of weird. But anyways, this is a great game to have. Resident Evil 0, originally supposed to be on the N64. I was hoping to get it on that system, but they ported it over here to the GameCube, and it's a good game. It's different. It has like a switch system to it, like a character switch, so it's pretty unique. I think a lot of people will like it. Very good. And of course, this is a must. This is why I own a GameCube. Resident Evil, the remake version. This is probably the best Resident Evil game I've ever played. And I think it goes for about $20-25. So if you don't have this game and you own a GameCube, get it immediately. And this one, Skies Arcadia Legends. I got this one because I beat the Dreamcast version years ago, and I wanted to play the extra missions on this one to see how they were. I haven't really got into it yet because it's hard for me to play a game that just has added stuff to it when I've already beat the first one, you know. But anyways, good game. I will probably beat it someday.
If you could only keep one console and one game, what would it be? Man, these type of questions are so painful. That's tough because that one game has to sustain you for the rest of your life. I assume that's what you're getting at. So, man, I think most people would lean towards like an MMO, which I think would be a fantastic idea. But I don't play a lot of those, so I don't have a lot of experience with it. And I think maybe that answer is a bit of a cop-out, especially on consoles. But maybe, you know what, I'd probably say Grand Theft Auto 5, only because it is a pretty big world. You can do a bunch of things, whether it's shooting, whether it's playing through the story. There is an online component, driving, flying. You can do everything in that game, and plus explore. And so, I think that would be a game that I could probably stand for a long time and really dig into the nooks and crannies. And then probably outside of that, some really painfully difficult action game, like, I don't know, maybe one of the Sonic games or the Super Mario games, one of those games which I'm not very good at, but I'd have all the time in the world to just perfect it. That would be really awesome.
All right, what are the most underrated JRPGs on the GameCube, Wii, DS, and 3DS? It's a pretty big question, but I'll see if I can tackle it. So, for the GameCube, I would definitely say Baten Kaitos is incredibly underrated. Most people didn't play it. It has kind of a crappy cover, so you wouldn't necessarily pick it up based on that. But it has a really good story, really good characters. The battle system's really cool. It's a card-based battle system, and it has terrible voice acting, but if you can get past that, definitely worth a playthrough. The next one on the GameCube would definitely be Tales of Symphonia. It's a Tales game. You can't go wrong. It's amazing. Play it. On the Wii, I definitely have two picks for underrated JRPGs, and that would be Xenoblade Chronicles and The Last Story. Xenoblade Chronicles is an open world RPG, and it's amazing. Definitely worth a playthrough. If you haven't played it, play it. I know it's a little bit expensive, but if you can find it affordable, definitely check it out. The Last Story is also a action RPG, but it's a little bit more tactical, and it has some stealth elements, which, I like stealth. I always play as a thief, so it's pretty awesome. On the DS, check out Mystery Dungeon, Shiren the Wanderer. It is a dungeon crawler, almost roguelike RPG, so it's super fun, worth checking out. It's definitely one of those hidden gems. Children of Mana on the DS also. It had really poor reviews, but I think you should definitely look past those because a lot of the reviews said it was too simple. But once you get into it, it's a very good game in the Mana series and worth checking out, worth playing. If you like the Mana series, Secret of Mana is one of my favorite games. And if it's yours too, you should play some Children of Mana because it's awesome. And Final Fantasy, the Four Heroes of Light, is one of those underrated Final Fantasy games because most people play like the Final Fantasy 3 that was on the DS, which was amazing, but most people didn't play the Heroes of Light. It's wonderful, it's beautiful, it takes all the graphics to the DS to the nth degree, and it's beautiful. On the 3DS, I can say that I didn't really play too many of the JRPGs on it, but Bravely Default is going to be my #1 pick for JRPGs on the 3DS. It's very reminiscent of old Final Fantasy, so if you're anywhere near a Final Fantasy fan, check out Bravely Default. It has wonderful class systems. The battle system is the turn-based, wonderful Final Fantasy style. It's definitely worth checking out.
So Retro Liberty wants to know, what kind of shampoo do I use? Because I think Aaron is secretly in love with me. That's all right. I'm in love with you, buddy. I get this question occasionally, and I for a long time I use Pantene. I use the 2-in-1, which is 1 part shampoo, 1 part conditioner for like thin or light hair, and I use that for years. But recently I started working with a lady who used to be a beautician, and she told me just how terrible that shampoo is, and so she made me switch. So I did. So now I'm using L'Oreal. I don't know. She says it's good for my hair, so we'll see. GoldenEye 007 question here. What would be the most frustrating moment on that game for you? The truth is, I never played that back when it was popular because I was such a PC guy in the mid to late 90s, and so I didn't own an N64. Didn't play that game until probably, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, maybe even sooner than that. So honestly, the most frustrating thing about that game for me is the controls, because I feel like the N64 controller and with that game is so unintuitive, and that's only because I just don't have the experience playing that game. I can see that looking back, that game was probably quite amazing and probably one of the first examples of a first-person shooter done really well on a console, but at the time I was using keyboard and mouse, you know, so you couldn't really compare. And so that's the bummer, is that I look at 007 GoldenEye and kind of go, you know, it just doesn't have that nostalgia for me. But I appreciate people who do love it though. And actually I've watched people play it on my couch here at parties and they're totally into it, and so I really get it. Favorite drink, it's called the Buck and Becky. Fresca, Maker's Mark or Evans, and a shot of vodka. You can't substitute that. It has to be Fresca, it has to be Maker's Mark or Evans. Killer. Next question is about when I started my YouTube channel. Well, I created my account, I believe in 2006, and primarily uploaded family videos. Like there's an old video of, it's like a birthday wish to my nephew William. That was very fun to do. Also an old video of my dog Bruiser the pug. He gets very excited when we come home and we're gonna feed him for dinner. So he howls, I kind of egg him on, and so very kind of random stuff like that. But it was in 2010, I believe, when I was like, I'm actually gonna go for this. I'm gonna try to really grow my channel and try to be serious about making videos. And so I basically made a promise to myself that I've kept, and that is that I make a new video every week, no exceptions. And that is just something that I basically put on a to-do list every week, and it's non-negotiable. And the only caveat to that is that if I happen to get sick or if I go on vacation, then I allow myself to not put out a video that week. But that's pretty much my work ethic for this, and it's been going pretty well.
What do you think of the erection that video games have gone? It's just getting harder and harder.
How did you meet Metal Jesus? 3-4 years ago, I was working in a retro game shop, and Jason walked in, and he's just like in his video. It's like he was like, "Hey, dude, you know, I saw you out on Craigslist, and I wanted to come check the store out." And we just started talking about games, the YouTube channel, all that stuff, and you know, I liked him immediately. We became good friends. We actually went on some game hunt. Well, one game hunt, but it was the game hunt. Like, we found some crazy stuff that he'll probably tell you about one day. He throws some of the best parties, and hopefully, you know, talking about parties, the next one might be looming, right, Jason?
What is your favorite music band of all time besides your own? Very tough, because I'm a huge music fan and I like all kinds of music, and frankly it really just depends on what mood I'm in, because there are times when I'm in a hardcore metal mood and my favorite bands will be Opeth, maybe Dream Theater, Slayer, Pantera, maybe some newer stuff. And then maybe I'll be in a really mellow mood, like want to listen to some jazz, and that'll be Miles Davis and Bill Evans and all that, you know, John Coltrane, stuff like that. Or maybe I'll be kind of like a not really mellow mood, but I'm kind of like, you know, chilling out. So summer, maybe the windows are open and I want to listen to some trip hop, and that would be Portishead. It would be Thievery Corporation, maybe some Massive Attack. I almost said Mass Effect. You know, so it all really depends. Classic rock, I'm really big into Led Zeppelin, a lot of the biggies. AC/DC, the Bon Scott AC/DC stuff, I love all the original albums. Kiss is going to be a big one, obviously. The 70s Rush albums I think are awesome. I'm not a big fan of them in the 80s when they kind of added more synth and more pop, but yeah, that would definitely be in there. Then also too, like people would be surprised to know that I actually do like disco. Not a lot of it, but I grew up in that era, and so I actually really like the Bee Gees. And I blame my cousin because he played that album to death. And so, and also ABBA. I mean, I'm going to be shamed here, but it's true. But, you know, you put on a good ABBA song and my ass starts dancing, man. I start shaking it. So, you know, outside of that, I don't really listen to a lot of country. I've mentioned it before. The type of country I do probably would not turn off would be more bluegrass. What else is there? And I don't really listen to a lot of R&B or hip hop, although I do appreciate that there are some songs and stuff like that I do listen to and I do enjoy. As a matter of fact, Pitbull is, I mean, that Timber song gets stuck in my head all the goddamn time. So yeah, that's a little bit of my musical taste. A lot of people want to know where I got the name Metal Jesus, and also maybe why I call my channel MetalJesusRocks. I got the nickname from a guy named Neil, who I used to work with, and we used to be in kind of like a corporate environment. And I was the one guy who had rock t-shirts on, I had long hair, and I also had a music server at work where I had hundreds of gigabytes of hair metal and metal, you know, like death metal, Swedish death metal, grindcore, everything. And I would share it out on the entire floor and everyone would kind of log into it and listen. So that's kind of where it came from. He'd always call me the Metal Jesus and it just kind of stuck. And it was really funny to be in meetings at work and be called that. So I have Neil to thank for that. And then also when it came time to name my channel, I really wanted to call it something that was easy to remember because I wasn't looking for like Metal Jesus 439.7 or something like that. You know, so some people have, or the, you know, I wanted it to be very easy to remember. And so I simply threw rocks at the end of it. And I also felt that a name like Metal Jesus Rocks, while some people, it may turn them off or they may think I'm like religious, even though I do have a religious background. I was raised Assembly of God, but even though people might think that, I was really thinking more like I would be able to do anything I want, that it didn't sound like it was just going to be old retro games. I also wanted to be able to do music. I wanted to be able to do art. I wanted to be able to do Gamer Eats episodes. I wanted to be able to do anything that came to mind. And so my idea really was, it's sort of like this really big, easy to remember, generic name. And that's how I got Metal Jesus Rocks, and it stuck.
So if I had a chance to revive or remaster a game, there's a lot of them I would choose from, but I think I have two of them. One is for selfish reasons, and one is for real reasons. The first one would be Final Fantasy IX, because that is my favorite game of all time, because it's amazing, it's a turn-based JRPG, it's kind of the medieval steampunk story, and it's so good, and it's definitely the best Final Fantasy. Someone tried to tell me otherwise. And then the other one would definitely be Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, because that is a wonderful game. Although I don't think it got the heyday that it deserved, everyone thinks about that as the worst Zelda game ever. Which is really not fair, because the story's actually really good, it's really thought out, and I think if they redid it, it would put a whole new light on the series, and people might actually appreciate the game for what it is.
What was it like working at Sierra back in the day, and do you have any fun stories from that period? Well, yes. You know, what was it like working at Sierra at the time? It was amazing. And you can talk to Drunken Master Paul, you can talk to the big JB, you can talk to my wife Rebecca. It was amazing because it wasn't this big corporate machine yet, and Sierra was at the top of its game, putting out tons of great games that we were really proud of at the time. So it was awesome. I mean, it was almost like high school. We all, or maybe college. I mean, it was a party every day almost, and you got to hang out with a lot of different people. I remember hanging out with the guy who was composing music in this little office, and I went in there and there's all these synthesizers and a guitar with a MIDI pickup, and talking to the guy and about, he was all about creating, I think he was, at the time, he was creating music for educational titles, which I thought was really interesting, but he was totally serious about it. But we also hung out with people who created the box art and wrote the copy on the box, and we knew people who created the levels in games, and that's where I also ended up in Shivers too, because they they were walking around looking for a guy who was tall, had long hair, and played guitar. And they wanted me to be in this game. So I was like, you know, hell yeah. Same thing with Drunken Master Paul in the games that he was in, is that they just needed people to fill bodies and maybe do voiceover work. Paul also did a couple articles for Interactive Magazine. And it was just one of those times where it was very collaborative. And that's just kind of how it was. It wasn't really big and corporate at the time. One of my fondest, well, one of the memories, I don't know how fond of this memory I am, but I was so excited to work at Sierra, and it was pretty early on. And I remember in the men's room, and I went in to go use the bathroom. I'm standing at the stall, you know, and then literally Ken Williams walks in, and it was the first time I'd seen him at my job, and I was like, and literally I'm standing there with my dick in my hand, and I froze, man. It was like I'm standing next to him. I'm like looking at him. You know, I don't want him to think, you know, I'm looking at him or looking down at him or anything like that. And literally, I just could not do anything. I was starstruck. I was like, oh my God, here's Ken Williams, you know. And I literally just froze, waited till he left, and then I continued to pee because I was just like so, I don't know what it was. It's very silly, but you know, later on, of course, you know, you sort of get used to seeing Outlaw and people like that. But yeah, I was pretty starstruck. The other thing too that was really fun about Sierra is that I lived in Bellevue, and Sierra's headquarters were actually in Factoria, and so it was a very easy commute for me back and forth to work. And so I held parties at my house a lot, and essentially at least once a month, I would send out a message saying, "Hey, if you have nothing to do on a Friday night, come hang out at my house and drink beers." And we had a DJ, we had this awesome sound system set up. People could dance, people could hang out. So that happened an awful lot at my house. A lot of people came over on a Friday night, got completely trashed, may or may not have hooked up with people. I don't know, those are just rumors. But yeah, that's just some of the great memories I have of working at Sierra. You and Alpha Omega Sin should do a video together. Have you gotten the PS4, Wii U, or Xbox One yet? So let me answer the first one. I would love to do a video with Alpha Omega Sin. I subscribe to him. I think he's awesome. He's an amazing ranter. The guy has got the gift of gab, and so I'm very jealous of that. I think it'd be really fun to do a video with him. I met him briefly, was it last year at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo? He was there. Super cool guy, got to say hello to him. I was kind of starstruck when I saw him. It was pretty amazing. So that would be very cool. If he ever comes up to Seattle or maybe down in Portland, maybe this year, I don't know. Maybe if he'll go, that'd be kind of cool. As far as this current gen, I just recently picked up a PlayStation 4. Just got it about a week or two ago, actually, so fairly recently. And just today, before I started filming this, I finally finished the new Thief game. And we have also been playing the Destiny beta, which has been really fun. So yeah, I'm officially in this generation and have been playing games for a couple weeks now. We are both big Opeth fans. My favorite is Still Life. What is your favorite album by Opeth? This is tough, man, because they make some great albums. Blackwater Park was the album that really, that was the first album I got into them with, and I think that album is perfection from beginning to end. But also Damnation and Deliverance, the two-parter, the Mellow and the Hard album, amazing. But if I had to choose, it probably would be Ghost Reveries, and I think that is an amazing album from beginning to end because it's got so much variety in it, and it goes from the growly vocals to the really soft, mellow ballads up to kind of like tribal stuff. It's got the heavy Swedish death metal to kind of more prog rock. It's just that band is one of my all-time favorite bands, and they are right up there with Dream Theater and all the rest. I just absolutely love everything they do. Next up, what films do I consider my favorites? Well, I handpicked a bunch of films here that I kind of break into two categories because I'm a big fan of B movies, bad B movies, but I also like really good movies too. And to be quite honest, I could do an entire video dedicated to this, so I'm just gonna go really, really quickly here. Let's start with the good ones though, okay? I love The Shining. This is an amazing movie. One of the first movies I watched as a kid. I loved it. The Matador, fantastic movie if you haven't seen it. Of course, Blade Runner. Oh my God, so perfect. The Incredibles, one of my favorite Pixar movies of all time. The Watchmen. This is an amazing movie, actually. I really like comic book movies, and I think this is a really good one. I also love the graphic novel. Have you ever seen a grown man naked? Oh, yes. Airplane. John Carpenter's The Thing, one of the scariest, grossest movies I've ever seen. I love it so much. Fight Club, amazing movie. I mean, all these movies are great, right? But what do I say about this one other than has a great plot twist I just did not see coming the first time that I watched this movie. Although now when I watch it, I see little parts of Brad Pitt kind of splashed in all over the place. So just a fantastic movie. Here's one not a lot of people know about. It's by the makers of The Matrix. This is, I think, their first movie. It's called Bound. Really good movie. This is kind of a gangster kind of thriller. Really good. And then as far as the last movies that you know are what I consider good, of course, James Bond. I love James Bond, and this is Goldfinger, probably my all-time favorite. Although I really like a lot of James Bond movies. Now, this doesn't cover some of the more obvious ones like Back to the Future series, so good. Indiana Jones, of course, Star Wars, amazing. So I could go on and on. But let's get to some of the more obscure kind of bad B movies I love. Star Crash. This movie is terrible and so awesome. If you haven't seen Star Crash, I highly recommend it. It's an Italian take on Star Wars. So bad. Speaking of bad, the Batman movie. Yes, the one with Adam West. This one's a classic, especially with the shark repellent. Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. This one was written by, it was made by Russ Meyer, and it was written by Roger Ebert. This is one of the most bizarre movies I've ever seen, and it's so awesome. Here's a little bit newer bad B movie, and that is Nicolas Cage in Drive Angry, also with, I think it's Amber Heard, right? This is actually kind of a good movie. I like it a lot. I like it enough to own it. One of the first bad B movies that I loved as a kid, The Cannonball Run. This was the first movie that really got me excited about supercar, exotic sports cars. Plus, it's just a silly, fun movie. Here's a newer one that I think is amazing. Planet Terror. This is a Robert Rodriguez movie here. And then I guess... oh gosh, this has a bunch of great people in it. So Bruce Willis is in here. So many awesome cameos and stuff. And then finally, for the bad B movies, I gotta go with Hard Ticket to Hawaii. Paul got me this compilation of just terrible movies. Hard Ticket to Hawaii is possibly one of the worst movies that I've ever seen, but it has lots of nudity, lots of explosions, gunfire. And it has one of the most outrageous endings of any movie ever. If you don't believe me, go watch the trailer. It's a total must. So that's a little insight into the types of movies I like.
Okay, we'll give you my top 5 films today. Top 5 films are probably going to be Forbidden Planet, Phantom of the Paradise, Victor Victoria, Maltese Falcon, and Support Your Local Sheriff. If I had to pick right now, in this moment, those would be my top 5.
What are some of your favorite films? Hands down, favorite movie of all time is Empire Strikes Back. Another one of my favorites, Big Trouble Little China. And for cheesy awesomeness, you have to go with, that's right, Megaforce. Deeds, not words.
Well guys, that's the end of part 1, but don't fret, part 2 is coming very soon, and in that video I'm going to be answering more of your questions, including what was one of my worst experiences at Sierra? A great question. Also, what is the meaning of life? Do I have an answer to that? Yes, I do. Also, where did I come up with the red skull that I show on my channel and on my avatar and all that? I'll tell you that. As well as what game made me feel an emotion that I thought I never would. It's gonna get deep, people. And then finally, Drunken Master Paul is going to answer the question that is on everyone's mind, and that is, Britney or Kinsey? Stay tuned.